So Cracker Barrel is once again getting destroyed from the co-founder as he slams the leadership once again for the dumbest decisions in company history. So he's going scorched oath over this whole thing, and Cracker Barrel is in serious trouble, as you all know. And anyone who's been to any Cracker Barrel lately can see it. You see, the co-founder himself is saying that the CEO just doesn't understand Cracker Barrel, okay, at all, okay? And that particular disconnect explains the mess that the current company is in right now. So this is coming in from Fox News, and it's also showing that families who used to rely on Cracker Barrel for food and tradition walk in today and see they're in a completely different place, okay? So basically, the brand is drifting away from, or has drifted away from, what made it special, and the results are plain for everyone to see. So as you all remember, the $700 million remodel plan stripped away, everything that gave the chain its identity. Now, from rocking chairs, fireplaces, to old country decor, even the checkerboards and stuff, and the shelves filled with candy and even antiques were replaced with plain walls, corporate lighting, and just a sterile design called barn chic and stuff. But in reality, it's basically 1984 in real life. Now, the customers walked in and saw a space that could have belonged to any generic restaurant. You see, they knew instantly that the Cracker Barrel they remember was gone. That wasn't modernization at all, but it was just cultural erasure, and the people in charge, well, let's be honest, they didn't even care at all. Now, the stock price dropped, value was wiped out, and the investors behind the scenes just went on ahead and raised alarms about the direction of the company itself. You see, short sellers increased their positions because, they recognized a failed strategy when they saw one, okay? And leadership over the company promised growth, but the result was actually a decline. The attempt to win over a younger demographic failed because, well, guess what? Younger diners can already find trendy dining in countless places. But what made this chain valuable was the uniqueness, and that uniqueness was thrown away. Okay, so basically, the customers reacted the way that anyone would when the tradition is actually torn apart and dismantled. They noticed hard hand-rolled biscuits disappearing. They noticed the old-timers breakfast and Uncle Herschel's menu options were being cut. As a matter of fact, they recognized when the food was horrible. These are just symbols of the continuity that tied families together across generations. Okay, and removing them signaled to loyal diners that their loyalty no longer mattered. Okay, so people actually voiced it bluntly, where they basically said this is not Cracker Barrel anymore, and that wasn't nostalgia talking either, but that was the actual reality check that they were being delivered. Now, the co-founder's criticism actually highlighted how deep the misunderstanding goes. You see, he explained that the CEO for Cracker Barrel doesn't even eat in the restaurants, okay? And that's a shame right there. But that particular fact alone tells the whole story. If the leader of Cracker Barrel doesn't immerse herself in the actual experience, well, let's just call it what it is. She can't understand what the customers actually want. Now, decisions end up driven by consultants and surface level trends, not by knowledge of the culture that actually makes the people return. Okay, I mean, it's that simple. Without that grounding, every change is hollow. Okay, not feels hollow, but actually is hollow. And investors like Sardar Biglari called out leadership for weak decision making, and his push actually resonated because shareholders actually saw the same failures happening over and over again. Now, they didn't buy into the company to go ahead and fund woke corporate experiments. They bought in because Cracker Barrel actually represented stability, authenticity, and a clear value proposition. And instead of just, reinforcing that, the board just rolled out a costly transformation that erased the competitive advantage. Okay, so investors are right to push back because They understand that heritage was the brand's greatest asset. Okay. And then it was also the employees that were left to face the fallout in real time. They had to go ahead and explain to the customers why the food was different, why it was so bad, why the design was stripped down, and why familiar traditions were just disappearing in plain sight. That put them in a position where they had to go ahead and defend the choices they didn't make themselves. Okay. So if it broke morale because workers could just see that the company itself was losing its essence. And when staff sense, a gap between what they are told to say and what the customers actually want, well, it creates a cycle of distrust that spreads across the business itself. All right, so this particular timing of this woke failure compounds the damage. You see, inflation has raised food costs. Families are eating out less. Competition is actually fierce in the restaurant industry, okay? And, well, instead of just, doubling down on what made this chain resilient, the leadership dismantled it, okay? So that particular choice is reckless, and families once trusted Cracker Barrel for its consistency. And right now, all they see is confusion. They don't want to go ahead and spend, limited dining dollars on a place that's ashamed of its own identity, okay? So that explains why traffic has declined and why the chain is struggling to go ahead and hold its base. But most importantly, it's because of the bad food. Now, the idea that a remodel alone would pull in new demographics was just naive. You see, young people are still not impressed by the imitation trends. They already have countless restaurants that look modern and even minimal. You see, they don't need another one to do that. They have enough as it is. But what they don't have is authenticity. That was the niche that Cracker Barrel owned. And abandoning it just left this brand without an anchor. Okay, so now it sits in the worst position possible, where they're just losing the older customers while failing to capture the new. All right. I mean, that's business 101 right there. The co-founders' words cut through because they come from someone who actually built the model, or at least helped build it. He doesn't need to go ahead and just guess what customers want. You see, he already knew because he saw it work for decades. His voice is not bitterness about change at all. It's just a warning rooted in experience. If the leadership ignores that voice, it proves that they care more about their own image than just serving the business and the customers who keep it afloat. Now, customers will side with the man who actually helped create the tradition long before they side with the executives in place right now who are currently dismantling it. Okay, so the chain once had one of the strongest brand identities in the restaurant industry. Okay, competitors out there had to go ahead and spend millions just creating recognition, while this chain actually had it naturally. Okay, so the front porch with rocking chairs, the old-fashioned general store, and the family dining rooms with the country decor. These weren't even gimmicks at all. You see, they saw this as the defining features. They gave the brand a soul, and now those features are, have been gutted out, replaced with design choices that actually belong anywhere else. But let's be real, that's not progress at all. Never was. It's just another example of self-destruction. Now, this collapse of identity from Cracker Barrel still affects the atmosphere itself and changes, how customers actually what they think about the food. Now, when the environment seems fake, the food is also fake. When traditions are removed, customers actually assume that the quality is slipping too. Now, honestly, that particular perception erodes trust, and trust is what keeps people coming back. Now, once it's gone, it doesn't really return every time. Cracker Barrel leadership underestimated how deeply atmosphere and food were connected in the minds of the people, which are the customers that they served. Okay, so restaurant margins for Cracker Barrel are already thin. A decision that drives away repeat customers has an outsized effect on stability. The company's rebrand actually alienated families that at the exact moment where loyalty mattered the most. Okay, the financial losses also reflect that, that particular reality. No remodel, no slogan, and no trend-driven strategy can replace the steady foundation of repeat business that actually carried the chain for decades. And as you all know, the leadership traded certainty for a gamble, and they lost. But the truth is, it's plain and simple. The decline was not caused by outside forces. It was caused by internal choices. Bars. The leadership looked at a brand rooted in tradition and decided tradition was the problem. I mean, they saw loyal customers as outdated and imagined replacements that never even materialized. I mean, that's how arrogance and ignorance combine to go ahead and destroy this company. Now, this chain is struggling because its own executives don't want country dining, plain and simple. Okay, so the future of Cracker Barrel just depends on, whether leadership is replaced or humbled. Okay, so investors are already, pushing, and customers have, already spoken with their wallets as well as social media posts. The co-founder of Cracker Barrel has drawn the line and made it clear what actually went wrong. You see, the path back for Cracker Barrel is not complicated at all. It requires respect for tradition, for atmosphere, and for the loyal base that built the company itself. Now, whether the current board of Cracker Barrel is capable of that respect is doubtful, but the alternative is continued collapse. Okay, so in essence, Cracker Barrel was once a cultural icon that actually, blended food, tradition, and memory into an experience no other chain could replicate. Now, it actually stood for something familiar and dependable, and today it stands as just another warning of what happens when leadership confuses progress with erasure. Okay, so yeah, definitely the co-founder's words on Cracker Barrel remain the most accurate diagnosis. The CEO doesn't understand the company, and until that problem is actually fixed, well, the damage will continue, and the brand that once defined country, dining will keep losing the very soul that made it thrive in the first place. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Be sure to smash the like button, share the video far and wide across social media, subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell for future uploads, notifications, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, peace.